special budget workshop. Today is Tuesday, June the 28th, 2022. It is now 9 a.m. and we are in the community wing of City Hall. If you would all please rise and join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. If the clerk would call the roll, please.
Mayor Alfin.
Present.
Vice Mayor Branchino.
Right here.
Councilmember Danko.
Here.
Councilmember Finelli.
Present.
And Councilmember Kloufis is excused as discussed.
Thank you. Before we begin this morning, I wanted to take a moment to explain the City Council's objectives for having workshops every month. The Council meets in workshops to be well informed of each item to be brought before the City Council and to make the best determination on behalf of all City residents. City staff presents detailed information during the workshops and provides a summary background of each item, as well as any additional documents relative to the item. The City Council can then have a meaningful, collaborative, healthy discussion on each item presented. This way, facts and knowledge can be obtained prior to the next business meeting, where City Council then makes the best determination in the interest of the citizens' health, safety, and welfare on each item. As we continue to grow as a collaborative council and follow all council meeting policies and procedures, I will always try to do my best to make sure that every City Council member has an opportunity to bring forth individual opinions. Our constituents are expecting council to communicate cohesively and with civility to serve our community. The workshops are a valuable tool to present and discuss our individual opinions on behalf of all residents and achieve these objectives. We may not agree with each other, but this is one advantage of the workshops, to evaluate all the information necessary in advance of a decision, a motion, and a vote at our next city business meeting. I hope that we will all understand the purpose of these workshops, and I invite all opinions at all times on the dais. With that, we will move down the agenda to public participation. We have a small audience this morning, so in order for city staff to be able to respond to your questions or concerns, please fill out a comment card with your contact information. The comment cards can be found on the table near the agendas or from the table in the back where the directors are all seated attentively. Public participation shall be held in accordance with Section 286.0114 Florida statutes and pursuant to the City Council's meeting policies and procedures. 1, each speaker shall at the podium provide their name and may speak up to 3 minutes. 2, the public may provide comments to the City Council relative to matters not on the agenda at the times indicated in this agenda. Following any comments from the public, there may be discussion by City Council. 3, when addressing the City Council on specific enumerated agenda items, speakers shall A, direct all comments to the mayor. Make their comments concise and to the point. Not speak more than once on the same subject, not by speech or otherwise delay or interrupt the proceedings or the peace of the City Council. Obey the orders of the mayor or the City Council and not make any irrelevant, impertinent, or slanderous comments while addressing the City Council, which pursuant to council rules shall be considered disorderly. Any person who becomes disorderly or who fails to confine his or her comments to the identified subject or business shall be cautioned by the mayor and thereafter must conclude his or her remarks on the subject within the remaining designated time limit. Any speaker failing to comply, as cautioned, shall be barred from making any additional comments during the meeting and may be removed as necessary for the remainder of the meeting. Members of the public may make comments during the public comment of the portion of the meeting. Please be advised that the public comment will only be permitted during the public comment portions of the agenda at the times indicated by the chair during the meeting. So with that, I would just remind everyone that today is a special budget workshop, and the agenda is entirely dedicated to the special budget workshop items. So with that, I would move to item number E on the agenda and begin presentations. And I would invite the first presentation, which is the 2022 Legislative Overview by the Southern Group. So please approach. And Ms. Johnson, do you have a presentation to start, or how would you like to begin?
Yes, good morning, Mayor and City Council. Here to introduce the Southern Group. This is Laura and Oscar. If you'll come to the podium, please. Should be good, Laura.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, good morning, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having us here today in your beautiful city. My name is Laura Beamer. I'm a partner with the Southern Group. This is Oscar Anderson. He's also a partner. We have the honor of representing you in Tallahassee and are here today to give you a legislative overview and to talk a little bit about what's kind of on the horizon for next year. As you know, a couple years ago, the legislature changed how we do legislative sessions, and we do an early and late session. This year we started in January, next year we start in March, so we have a little more time to prepare for next session. As you know, it's redistricting year, everybody's running for re-election, so as soon as the elections are over in November, we're gonna get started. So just some statistics from the legislative session. There were 3,685 bills introduced, but only 285 bills passed both chambers. And as you saw, this year's budget total was $112.1 billion, which was a 10% increase over this year, which included the $3.5 billion in the COVID recovery funds. Since then, the governor did come out with his veto pen, and the total was how many billion? 2 billion? About $2 billion that he vetoed. Everybody took a lot of hits. I'm not going to go through all of this, but just hit some budget highlights that are of particular interest to us here with local governments. They funded $125 million for septic, sewer, and stormwater improvements. They funded $265 million in the wastewater treatment facility revolving loan fund. None of this was vetoed, by the way. The Resilient Florida Trust Fund, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, that was funded at $504 million. Florida Forever at $100 million. And then I know this is of a particular interest to some folks here, the broadband and cybersecurity. They funded $400 million for the Opportunity Program, $35 million for technical assistance, and $30 million for employee training. I don't know, Oscar, if you want to talk a little bit about the housing funding.
Sure, happy to. So if you may or may not recall, a couple of years ago, they sort of struck a grand bargain. They had been historically sweeping whatever they wanted to out of the affordable housing trust funds and cut a deal to create a more dedicated funding source. These totals, the $209 million in SHIP and the $153 in sale, are what was agreed to a couple of years ago. The interesting thing there is, okay, so SHIP is what local governments get a piece of, right? Sale is the one that actually produces new housing units, new affordable housing units. They took $100 million out of that $153 million and put it in a new Hometown Hero housing program, which is basically like a SHIP program run out of the state. So there's less money there for actual production of new units. There was some old program income though they're going to repurpose, but for the most part, they kind of swept that $100 million out of that for that new program.
Visit Florida. That's been on the chopping block the past couple years. They reauthorized it last year, right? And then they funded it at $50 million this year. And then the Job Growth Grant Fund was refunded again at $50 million. There's still some funding left in that, the grant fund currently. So that's a rolling grant, so there's no deadline, so we can apply for funding through that grant program all year long. These were the City of Palm Coast appropriation requests to the legislature. I'm sure you're well aware, we did not receive any funding this year in the state budget. However, there is a fund I'm going to talk about in a minute that was included in the budget that wasn't vetoed, that we are going to go after some funding for. And the one thing I will say about this, the governor did take his veto pen to many of the transportation projects that were not included in the work plan. And so, while we would hope to get funded at least if we weren't vetoed, because if we were vetoed, we wouldn't be able to go back and ask for this funding again next year. So I was going to talk about Senate Bill 620, but I don't have to because the governor vetoed it on Friday. This was I would say took up most of our time during session from a local government perspective, and I'll let you talk a little bit about the veto letter. And
Sure, I'm happy to. So there, as all local governments are aware, there have been a lot of preemptions and attacks on home rule for years and years now. And the incoming Senate President, Kathleen Passidomo, wanted to sort of just nip all that in the bud. Just wanted to say, you know what, let's just create a mechanism where if local government does something onerous, then we don't have to keep dealing with all these individual preemption bills. And so this was the product of that. Senator Hudson locally here was a great, very helpful in sort of making it more reasonable for local governments and an important voice in that whole debate. We were unsure what the governor was going to do. We didn't really know. He did end up vetoing it. His veto letter actually went as far as to say, I think preemption should be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So there's a big policy divergence now between the governor and the incoming Senate President. I told Laura the other day, it's going to come back. I mean, it's too important to Senator Passidomo. She's just coming into being Senate President. She's got 2 years to sort of work on this. So I think we'll see it come back in some form or another. But anyway, so we don't have to worry about it this year for sure.
Something that comes up every year, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side you're on, the governor is not a big fan of vacation rentals. So each year this bill is filed and it hasn't passed since Ron DeSantis has been in office. So similar to, you want to talk about pet protection?
I can if you like.
I would like you to talk about pet protection. It didn't pass, but
It didn't
it'll come
pass.
back.
So, and this actually became part of the discussion around Senate Bill 620. There were a few local governments in the state, not all that near here, who went and just basically banned pet sales jurisdiction-wide. And basically put pet stores out of business. And so they would have, though that happened before 620 would have potentially become law, it would have prevented local governments from doing that in the future. It became a big part of the discussion around 620. As everybody knows, pets are a very personal thing, and it gets very, very elevated and very heated. And so I think this was a part of the rationale behind Senate Bill 620 as well.
So this was an issue that we've been working on for years, and it finally passed and it was signed into law, which this will allow cities and counties to restrict smoking in the boundaries of any public beach or public park, except for unfiltered cigars. So this is a really, really big deal especially for coastal communities to finally get this passed. Oscar, let's talk about
Sure.
your favorite bill.
My favorite bill. As you can tell, I do a lot of affordable housing work. So a few years ago, there was a bill passed that allowed local governments to fast-track affordable housing projects. Basically, you could put them in any zoning category. And so this was an expansion of that concept and said if somebody comes in with a mixed-use project that has a certain percentage that is affordable housing, it's up to you. The local government may allow them to use the same fast-track purpose and put it in any zoning category, industrial, commercial, whatever. So it's just a time incentive for affordable housing projects.
So some city revenue issues. Obviously, the taxation bill was signed into law. There were 9 sales tax holidays included in it. It includes the state fuel tax for the month of exemption for the month of October. And there was an increase in the ad valorem property tax exemption for widows, widowers, and blind or permanently disabled homeowners. And that went from $500 to $5,000. Additionally, House Joint Resolution 1 was passed, and Oscar kind of touched on the Hometown for Heroes funding, but this provides additional $50,000 property tax exemption for properties owned by critical workers. So this will go to the ballot in November to be voted on. This is the resiliency bill, House Bill 7053, I'm sorry. It established the Office of Resiliency in the governor's office. It articulated the chief resiliency officer's responsibilities, revised the timeline for the statewide flood vulnerability and sea level rise assessment. It required FGOT to develop a resiliency action plan for the state highway system. And then this was a big deal. It revised the $100 million cap on funding proposed for each year to the plan to a minimum threshold of $100 million. This has been a priority. It's a priority of the speaker. It's been a priority of the governor. And a tremendous amount of funding has been put into resiliency moving forward. And then last but not least, cybersecurity. This would require local governments to adopt certain cybersecurity standards. Counties of 75,000 or more must adopt these by January 1st, 2024. They also created a cybersecurity advisory council to kind of oversee this. They're still kind of working through all of the cybersecurity issues in Tallahassee, but this was a step in the right direction. And so let's talk about some other funding opportunities that we have between now and next session. Talked a little bit about this earlier. We have the Florida Job Growth Grant Fund. These are rolling applications. Like I said, we can apply all year long. I think we're actually in the process of looking at some projects right now. There's two different pots of money. There's workforce training projects, and then there's also infrastructure projects. And the governor, the legislature funded this at $50 million, and there was still some funding left in it from last year yet to be allocated. So the Resilient Florida Grant opportunity, this is something that your city manager and I have talked to DEP about. We've made some good inroads with them. Obviously, there are projects that would address the risk of sea level rise or flooding in the community. Infrastructure projects. Also, we have the Resilient Florida Planning Grants, which that's kind of the first step in getting some funding from the Resiliency Florida Grant Program. And I think, Denise, we're in the process of working with them on that, if I'm correct.
Yes, we're working on those channels, but also on the local level of coordinating with our neighboring jurisdictions to have a collaborative approach.
So additionally, every year they fund the wastewater grant program. There's innovative technology grants. And this was the big one that's new this year. So there was a pot of money, there's $175 million in the budget for something they're calling local support grants. The process is similar to the appropriations process. The form is essentially the same. We have to apply by July 15th, and the requests go to the Legislative Budget Commission, which is made up of 6 members of the House and 6 members of the Senate, co-chaired by the 2 appropriation chairs. So we are actually now in the process of applying for funding to them, and I don't know, have they said when they're going to make the announcements of the awards? I haven't heard.
I think the proviso said by August 15th, so it's a very quick turnaround because it's this year's money, right? Which starts July 1st.
It'll be a very interesting process to watch since it's brand new and it's
yeah, it is unique, and the governor's office is keeping an eye on it because they don't really like the precedent, as you can imagine. It's sort of bypassing the governor's veto pen to some extent. So, but it's a lot. I mean, $175 million goes a long way. So.
we had a special session on property insurance. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about
Property insurance.
I mean, this is essentially what happened. Is it dedicated $150 million to the My Safe Florida home program. Was trying to create discounts for homeowners who participate in the program. You know, as an effort to try to bring the cost down, to try to mitigate the fraud, especially within the roofing industry. As you can see, it prohibits insurance companies from denying coverage based on the age of a roof that's less than 15 years old. So we'll see. We'll see if this actually can make a difference. It was a fight between the House and the Senate during session and the governor, and they brought this in for a landing for the governor. So hopefully we'll see some changes. So what's next? We have the upcoming elections. Like I said, it's a redistricting year, so everyone in the House and the Senate is running for re-election. Good for us is Representative Speaker-elect Paul Renner will be coming in as the Speaker of the House, who is our state representative, and we also have, we have a great delegation with Senator Hudson as well. And like I said, I talked about this earlier, we'll go into organizational session right after the elections in November, committee weeks, then we'll kick off in December, January, February, and then we start session in March. So we have time to prepare for our agenda for the next session. And like I said, in the meantime, we'll work on whatever avenues we can to get increased funding for y'all.
So I have, if I may start, I have a couple of questions, and then I'm sure my fellow city council members will as well. First, I sense a theme through the appropriations that were approved in this last session surrounded by, infrastructure as a central core and a theme. So is it your opinion that infrastructure should continue to be a core component of our appropriation requests going forward?
100%.
100%, okay.
100%.
I've come to understand that our city of Palm Coast, as of the last census, has outgrown some of the smaller grant programs that we may have been available to us, and obviously will not be available to us again in the future. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I guess that's a double-edged sword. We won't have the smaller pots to go after, but we'll have a sharper focus on the larger pots now that we have elevated to that level of grant.
And there's more funding available too.
And I think it's important that I mention, first of all, with Southern Group, and you didn't mention this, but I will. So former Senator Thrasher and also former President Thrasher from FSU has rejoined the firm and is at the helm of, grand direction. So I think as a city, we're very excited about that. Senator Thrasher has always been near and dear to our hearts. As a matter of fact, he and I spoke together at my graduation from the Chamber's Leadership Academy some years ago. So I know he's a big fan and proponent. So we will beg on him to help us with all of the experience he has. Additionally, the resource of Southern Group as a lobbyist for the city of Palm Coast is, in my opinion, extremely helpful, especially as we march forward into a difficult financial economic environment. We do not have and don't plan on a full-time staff here inside the city to lobby on our own behalf. So we will look to you to assist, our efforts in those resources. Our folks can only wear so many hats, and we look for you to show us the way to success in our appropriations requests. And then my last comment is, I'm getting a little concerned when I put little bits and snippets together about a direction, I guess from Tallahassee perhaps, on usurping hometown rule. And you mentioned it with the ship and the sail program, just as an example. Now, that's just one of many. So is it your opinion that there is a movement underway, and I don't know if it's in the legislature or the Senate, to take some of our local hometown rights away in favor of what appears to be a generic template for all of the state of Florida? Is it just something that we should have on our radar? I know it's a big question, but.
It's a great question. And I guess I would say you should always pay attention to a tax on home rule. The smoking ban actually was like a rare home rule victory, frankly. We don't see a lot of those.
As was the vacation rental, which started here in Flagler County, which we won, yes.
Yes. I think it's long as the governor's in the governor's mansion, which everybody believes that he will be. We have a good friend there that for local governments. He seems to have a real desire, though I think you could probably, people on the other side have argued it too, but for the most part, he likes to get out of local government's way on those issues. So that helps. He doesn't think the state should be mandating those things out.
Good. Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Just one thing that caught my attention here on the special session from May 23rd to 27th. It provides for $2 billion in insurance relief to benefit policyholders over the next 2 years. The reason why I called my attention is that about a month ago, I received a letter from my home insurance company stating that we will not renew you. I never, ever, I don't recall ever doing any claims or anything, and suddenly, and there's nothing you could do. I read, and there's nothing you could do. They just simply deny you. That's it, period. There's no ifs or buts about it. Would this, in any way, shape, or form, will be just in case if let's say we have some catastrophe, would this will be able to help me or anyone in my situation?
Not a property insurance expert, so just I'm gonna put that as a big asterisk on this conversation. We've obviously talked about it a lot internally. That $2 billion was to try to shore up the market and bring more reinsurance back into the market to allow insurance companies to feel like they can continue. The changes that they passed were a lot of little changes, and people are unsure. I mean, definitely it's not going to impact this season, right? This hurricane season. It's really for potentially next year. I don't know if that $2 billion is going to help you directly or not. It was supposed to prop up the insurance industry to some extent, so that they would be less likely to not renew you. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it does. It doesn't make sense for us, payers,
Yeah, right.
that we got insurance and suddenly for absolute no reason for us, they got a pretty good reason. They're in the business to make money, that's what it is. And my other question, very simple question, so people out there could hear. Tell me, what was the biggest thing you've done for Palm Coast last year? The biggest lobbying piece that you actually presented?
I mean, honestly, I think the biggest or the best thing that has come from this relationship, and Denise may differ from me, but working with Denise and Jason, by the way, they're fantastic, is trying to work with your staff to develop some good relationships with the executive branch, right? So we had meetings in Tallahassee with the Department of Transportation. We had meetings in Tallahassee with DEP. I've put together key people from the Department of Corrections to kind of try to solve a problem that they had with them, because we know that there's going to be infrastructure money coming down from the feds. It's going to be flowing through DOT. So we want to have those relationships in place so we can access that funding as well. So I think the greatest asset thus far is us being able to kind of help develop those relationships at the executive branch on the statewide level.
I was looking for something more palpable, but that was that.
So if I could just jump in, and I don't want you to be shy about this. So the exercise of going preparation for our last appropriation request was handled by Southern. They accompanied us to Tallahassee, and I think the experience and the result greases the machine. So I have every confidence I could possibly have based on that experience that we get our ask in the next session, if not before.
I think
So
we have to be careful with the word greasing, because that could mean something else. But just let's make sure we use another word.
well, lubricates, how's
There
that? Do you
go.
prefer that?
Much better.
Very good. All right, it's more syllables, but okay. All right, who's next?
I have to follow that. Councilman Burkino asked the question about the insurance, which I'm glad you gave us what you can on it. I mean, my insurance rates went up 30% this year. It's just unbelievable when I opened up that letter. But you answered my question, and
a big part of that, which they haven't addressed yet, and this is what senators have told me, so I'm going to just, again, put an asterisk on this, is that of all the litigation in the country, like we're 9% of the insurance, which is like I guess cases or insurance claims, insurance cases in the country, but we're like 70% of the litigation. So it's a very litigious environment. It's very favorable to the attorneys. It's built to settle even at really high amounts. So there are some things kind of broken in the system, and they've got to figure out how to address those. And you get into big political battles of trial lawyer versus insurance, sort of an age-old battle in Tallahassee. So it's a hard thing to move on. These were some important steps in that direction, but they don't think they solved the underlying problems yet.
Councilman Finelli?
Thank you for that presentation. Thank you for lobbying on behalf of the citizens of Palm Coast. I see another value of having lobbyists working for the school district. I've seen the value with the lobbyists that we have in Tallahassee as well. So thank you for all of that. I'd like to echo the sentiments of my fellow council members here regarding homeowners insurance. It definitely is a concern, especially when you're seeing those massive increases of 30%. I'm very interested in a job growth grant. I think anytime we can find a way to bring extra money into the county, especially when we're talking about workforce training and infrastructure, how would I go about getting a copy of that grant?
I'd be happy to email it to you. I can send you the link.
Thank you very much.
So, Councilman Finelli, that brings up a good point, just to kind of finish up. Will Southern be issuing kind of a regular summary report, I guess probably to city manager, and then city manager, will you update city council? Historically, we've gone for very long periods of time, sort of in the dark. I, for one, would appreciate a more regular update on how you all are doing and the progress you're making on the particular projects. I think it raises our bar up here so we know what to ask, and we get to a collaborative finish line. So thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate your traveling here today to meet with us, and I'm sure we'll have many, many more conversations. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
We move on now to the next presentation, which is the Strategic Action Plan project plans. And Ms. Johnston, are you delivering the presentation?
Yes, Mayor. Okay, good morning, Mayor and City Council. Lauren Johnston, Assistant City Manager. On behalf of the SAP team and our executive team, I'll be going through the project plans of where we see these priorities and how staff plans to achieve them in the next fiscal year, along with some budgetary impacts as well as staff hours. The department heads have estimated staff time as a part of this process, so we know what we can manage for next year. So where we are in our timeline, as you guys know, this starts every year with our annual citizen survey results, which we start in March. And then through the process, we create our council one-on-ones. Then we do an evaluation in late March. We bring it back to make sure we heard you correctly in April. We adopted our current priorities on May 3rd, and we're here today to give an update on the priorities. Also wanted to reinforce, our city's mission, vision, which is that long-range 10-year plan, our values, and as you remember and recall, we moved into a 4-pillar approach with all of our priorities falling along in these pillars or focus areas, and those being safe and reliable services, strong resilient economy, civic engagement, and sustainable environment and infrastructure. So we will go through each priority as it fits into these pillars. We will start off with Town Center should promote and partner with well-known higher education institutions to become a regional center for learning. Partnerships will be enhanced by a home for arts and culture, offering opportunities for performance, display, and expression and training. And an objective here is to evaluate Town Center land for potential acquisition of open space to meet the need of future growth. This is an expanded priority. Previously our Arts District Initiative, and we're continuing and underway with the Town Center Master Plan. We received a report from the consultant that was delivered to us on May 24th. Projected in the outcomes will be a presentation to you, City Council, from that consultant. There is a phase 2 of that master plan. We've also partnered with our Arts District Steering Group to create a United We Art special event, which will encompass all of the arts in our community for a week in October. And then we also heard City Council express the interest to enhance and expand our criteria for our cultural arts grants. And that's more to come that you will hear throughout the year. Are there any questions regarding this priority?
I do have a question.
Sure.
The assignment of this priority, this pillar, is this a pillar?
This is a priority
Priority.
under strong and resilient economy
So
pillar.
the assignment of this priority within that pillar is assigned to a project manager, Parks and Rec.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, the lead of the priority is closely aligned with an economic development and then moves to the arts and culture. So Parks and Rec, it just seems odd that that's the linkage.
Okay, Mayor.
I just need to, understand it, that's all.
Sure. This was previously as my director capacity in Parks and Recreation whenever I was spearheading this. We do a lot with arts and culture in Parks and Recreation, and so there was a nice complement to it. We do have a steering group, so it's something that we can definitely work alongside the economic development manager whenever they come on board. But your Parks and Recreation Department is your doer. They put on your programs, they facilitate your special events, and they run the Cultural Arts Grants Program. So I agree, and we can definitely complement with economic development.
I think they go hand in hand naturally. Great, thank you. And they do reinforce each other.
Yes. Next priority is Palm Coast brands its future as a regional destination for healthcare training, complemented by research and technology innovation while fostering relationships. This lives with economic development, and our economic development manager will maintain the relationships in the healthcare and higher education sectors to grow training opportunities within the city. And projected outcomes for this priority is to create a branding and marketing kit, distribute an annual report on healthcare training, and continue to meet quarterly with sector professionals. Next priority is to strengthen and maintain relationships with key community stakeholders. We heard through the priority process that City Council would like a list of the stakeholders and top 10 biggest employers and periodic communications on relationship feedback. Kendra has created a wonderful tracking sheet, and as the city manager, myself, Mr. DiLorenzo, or any members of City Council continue to meet, and then again with also other city staff members continue to meet with our stakeholders, we are keeping record of that, and we can provide that tracking sheet to City Council, as well as the top 10 biggest employers are posted annually in our budget book.
So I would applaud you on that initiative. So I think City Council members would agree that having a regular engagement with our stakeholders to the community is absolutely an integral part of our responsibility.
And how do you want that to be done?
I think as you have the opportunity or the desire to meet with a stakeholder, I would suggest that you coordinate through city manager, and then that report that you have will show perhaps what last contact was, and then I would ask that each city council member offer a summary report on the results of your conversation or meeting, so that we can kind of be on the same page with the most important stakeholders in the community. I think it's just a matter of good business and good governance.
Our next priority is develop economic opportunity tools and communication strategies to enhance the need for regional growth. We had two objectives here. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23. The project manager is economic development. The projected outcomes is a printable and digital portfolio, recruitment and retention plan, a white paper on the benefits associated with forming an industrial development authority. Our next priority is also one of our legislative priorities. This project manager is economic development. This priority is our westward expansion that's guided by master planning for smart managed growth. Economic development is driven by town center regional destination initiatives. Economic growth and community marketing are supported by competitive youth sport activity centers, catering to young athletes, families, and fans across regional and distant locations. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23. As mentioned by the Southern Group, staff pursued appropriations for the Phase 1 of Matanzas Woods Extension. That's our progress to date. And then projected outcomes for next fiscal year is finalizing a conceptual master plan of the Matanzas Woods flyover, secure funding and commence construction, deliver a youth sports activity center feasibility study, and then in collaboration with an additional council priority, which is C2, staff will work in conjunction on local recreation needs and regional impacts.
I just make a comment. On the priority that preceded this one, there's a mention of green, what's the term?
Green industry,
Green and clean industry.
Yes, sir.
So there's a direct connect between that priority and this priority with regard to the westward expansion. There's a key component in the discussion regarding the westward expansion that prioritizes both green and animal corridor as well. So they relate to each other. So I think they're mutually supportive.
Okay. Moving on to our next priority is inventory, assess, and identify optimal use of city land assets. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23. Project manager is in community development, and projected outcomes is to create a multi-departmental team to inventory and map city assets, assess existing conditions including but not limited to draining, environmental, and encumbrances, and analyze of optimal uses of city-owned lands.
And I would just ask a question here. I see the number of estimated staff hours. I guess I would just ask to review if those number of hours could be reduced in favor of approaching the Flagler County property appraiser to do a lot of this legwork, because I think that that's a responsibility of that constitutional office as well.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Our next priority is to ensure continued smart, sustainable, long-term growth of the city of Palm Coast. Staff will develop a timeline and propose budget accordingly to conduct a comprehensive evaluation and appraisal report, analysis to update planning horizon to 2045. An objective here is in fiscal year 22, staff shall conduct a survey on resident feedback on multifamily housing in Palm Coast.
Can I stop you there for a second, please? Unfortunately, we did not have a slide for this, and what I would like to do is I would like to give my questions that I would like to see on this survey. Should you please pass it?
Can we go
No,
through
they're not there.
Can we go
No,
through?
those are the two questions.
Can we
that-
finish the priority first and then?
You could do it after, if you don't mind, sir, because this is talking exactly about that survey. If you don't mind, the two questions, then, if you don't mind, I don't think that will.
I think staff should finish let's staff finish the priority and then we can have the discussion.
Okay.
Would that be okay? Well, I'll
Okay,
pass
but
these
just
out. Yeah,
remind.
okay.
Thank you.
So this is a new priority for fiscal year 23. Our communications department is in progress for survey on residential feedback. Our projected outcomes is the survey questions will be in a presentation to City Council, and we're targeting July 12th. We will engage a facilitator and team to conduct a series of neighborhood meetings between the city residents and city staff regarding future growth of Palm Coast, including survey of all residential dwelling units. And then the final is completing community dialogue and vision, a report that will serve as the building block for updating the goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan.
Would that be the
Thank you.
appropriate
That's
time?
just because that helps us get to a completion here. So please, you comment?
No, the two questions that I'm proposing for, are they simple questions and yes or no answers? And one of the questions for the people out there, because my colleagues already got a copy, is just fair if I tell to the people out there. Question one, are you in favor of additional multifamily housing developments in the city of Palm Coast? Yes or no? Are you in favor, second question now, are you in favor of Palm Coast allowing single-family homes to be built on lots and less than 60 feet wide? Those are my two questions that I would like to see people out there to answer. And on my communications yesterday on a meeting I had with the city manager, I understand that will be, if we want to advertise, there will be some costs added to this. I then spoke with our supervisor of elections and asked, in case if we don't agree with it over here, what was the possibility, of course, if it was too expensive, don't agree, what was the possibility to put it in the referendum? She said, wouldn't cost us a cent unless we create a new page. So I think the choices for this type of surveys is that if we can't, because it's very expensive here, so we could do it as a referendum, leave it to, instead of 10,000, 12,000 people, we put it to everybody in Palm Coast at the moment of voting. They'll have the chance of voting on this at no cost for us, once again, unless there's what do you call it, an extra page that has to be created. I think those questions are fair, they're simple, and let the people of Palm Coast decide what we want, not we decide what the people of Palm Coast want. Thank
So
you.
well, let me, Vice Mayor, let me comment. So I appreciate your efforts to author survey questions. So I guess my first question, Lauren, what is the procedure for the survey?
So staff planned on bringing you those options on July 12th with questions, and then we have several different options that we can take as far as delivering the survey results, or delivering the survey.
So that's for a later discussion,
Staff planned on bringing it to City Council on July 12th.
on July 12th, okay.
Sure.
Because we've run into snags with surveys in the past, and I just want to make sure that we learn the lesson so that whatever results we get, we're comfortable using as data for the future.
And I believe, City Council directed staff to be mindful of how many surveys we were putting out to our city residents each year, and whether we add this as part of our annual citizen survey or, as part of another comprehensive survey, so we're not surveying every month.
Okay,
Right.
and then I would just also add, so I certainly am not an expert on surveys, but I come to understand that if the language in a survey and the scope of a survey is very important to its result. In other words, we certainly have no mind here to predetermine a result if we're legitimately wanting the public to weigh in. So when we pick a topic like multifamily housing, so the dwelling units in Palm Coast comprise at least 6 different working definitions of housing. So my question becomes, is it fair to single out any single form of housing, or is it what we want to know from the public, how would you rank, or how would you want to address each of the housing types? In other words, we've only picked one, and I'm not quite clear on what the actual definition in this question of multifamily housing is. Does it apply, for example, to a duplex property? Does it apply to an apartment? Does it apply to an owned condo? Does it apply to an attached townhouse? I just don't know the answers to that. So if we could further drill it down so that we get an answer that we can depend on. That's just a comment. And then the other one was 60 foot wide. Is there a way to broaden the question? you know, there are a multitude of different sized lots. Some of us are familiar with the original ITT Levittown structure of 80-foot lots. I think it was Levittown that actually built on the, Levittown, like in New York, built the 80-foot lots. So, and I don't know the answer, so we'll rely on staff. Would it be appropriate to ask to give them like an A, B, and C, as opposed to yes or no? I don't know the answer because I'm not a survey expert. So those are just comments I make on these questions.
They are fair comments, and I kind of agree with you that certain things you're wondering, and rightfully so, about this surveys, and if we don't agree with the survey, maybe we would agree with a referendum once we get the right questions. One of the reasons why I mentioned the 61, last week, we approved here 25 feet wide lots. And that's the only thing I'm saying, you know, and that's the reason why you know, this gives you a think. And I think I'm being precise, because if we're gonna load the questions, because what we're doing is loading the questions. If anybody does not know what a multifamily home is, I would say a duplex is not a multifamily home. A townhouse, in my opinion, is not a duplex. So I would say that anything above 2 floors is a multifamily. If it's got more than one family on that specific structure, it's multifamily. I mean, I think that what we're doing here is loading the questions that are so simple. Multifamily, how easier can it get? Now, if we intentionally load the questions, which is something that we try not to, at least I try not to do. That's why I went as simple as I could in order to not to confuse anybody. Because the minute you're gonna start giving A, B, C's, and D's, that's the minute you're gonna confuse people. And that's exactly what I'm not trying to do. I mean, I want people out Palm Coast to know why I'm doing this. It's because, in my opinion, we are having a problem with multifamily homes, and if we don't think we have, then we got a problem.
So let's agree to disagree at this moment
Absolutely.
until staff comes back, because, so you mentioned the word load. So my retort is, are we skewing the question by limiting the answer? Let's let staff deal with that and come back and see if we can't come to consensus.
There's only one thing that we have to do this in pretty fast, because in order to put it in a referendum, I think you have until August, mid-August, I think. Other than that, then you can put it there. So if my colleagues think that a month and a half will be good enough to come up with a question that we ask people
You're
regarding
really
that
city
issue.
manager to schedule for us.
Yes, no, I will.
Okay.
I do have a question. A referendum, what exactly would be the implications of that? Say 60% came back and said, I don't like multifamily housing, or 60% said I do. I mean, is this
I think the language would have to turn into a legal counsel. In other words, for it to become, I guess, an ordinance or a legal tool.
And do we have the ability to even do that on property that is zoned for multifamily? Are we opening up a Pandora's box here?
So there's a lot of, I'm not 100% clear on what the referendum that you're suggesting would do. And is it, we're trying to get an ordinance, or usually, I'm confused on how you would do a survey through a referendum. I don't think that that's the appropriate mechanism to do so. And then you're absolutely right, Councilmember Danko. What is the outcome? If the outcome was most people say they don't want multifamily housing, then do you just take it off every property that it exists on now as a vested zoning right? That would result in huge legal liability for the city, Burt Harris claims, takings claims. I mean, there's a whole host of issues that could occur there by doing that.
So I think that reinforces the vice mayor's initial request that we pull out the stops and find our way to a survey, because once you move to the other stage, I think it gets bigger than we're able to address certainly today.
I could understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I could understand counsel, but one thing I could tell you, that's what we're here for. We're here to legislate. And if we say there's no more multifamily homes, there's no more multifamily homes. There's nothing illegal about it. It was just done not long ago, and I mentioned the town, and that's it. And there's nothing nobody could do. We legislate, we create the laws. That's what we are here as a body. And if we decide that will be no more multifamily homes, let's give it a date, and that date, from that on, there's nothing illegal
So
about it.
I would have to refer to council on your statement because I'm not at all comfortable with that statement. I think that statement certainly opens up, I think in your own words, a can of sardines that are incalculable. So council, do you want to weigh in on that? Or do you need time to think it through?
I disagree with that statement, that there's nothing illegal about it. I would not agree that that's the case.
So maybe you could
I
talk,
still
maybe you could
insist
talk
on
to
that.
council on your own and
Let
I'm
me
happy
do
to
it.
do that, sure.
If we as a body decide that there will be no more multifamily homes, and we give a description of what multifamily is, okay, then if we decide, we decided. That's the power we have. We are a legislative body. We create the laws. We make the laws.
But
That's that simple.
I mean, that's true, you do, but that doesn't mean that you're insulated from legal challenge.
Oh, no, nothing we do
Right.
here, nothing we do here, absolutely nothing insulates us from any legal
Some
challenge.
things open you up more than others do,
No doubt about it, no doubt about it.
and that's the risk involved.
Mayor, if I can, community development is the project manager for this priority. Specifically, the project manager is Mr. Jose Papa. And as part of the July 12th bring back to city council, maybe he can run through the objectives for the comp plan, for the update of what it's trying to achieve and the outcomes and the importance of the community visioning process and how that's going to be conducted, and then how survey questions can play in a part of that. And we'll have a tag team with communications here as well.
so I certainly, I will, and I would invite or ask each of our city council members to reach out independently to our city attorney, just to make sure we're clear on our lanes or our boundaries within reason. And so each of us will speak to, independently.
I agree with that, and also what I would agree with is that, I'll give you an example. Let's say the people of Palm Coast say 75, 80, 51% says we don't want no more, multifamily homes. Can we, and I would appreciate if we get something based, can we legally take that advice and legislate regarding that? So if you have something for us regarding those lines, I'd appreciate it next time I speak to you. If we could do that, what would be the legal objections of us legislating regarding no more rezoning, for example, for what was done for a single family, and we're going to go and put another 400 square feet apartment there, and what was supposed to be a one family home. On that line of ideas, if you'd be so kind and tell us why it's not such a good idea or possibly illegal for us to legislate that way. Okay, thank you.
So moving on to our next priority, this is in the spirit of the Arts District, create an arts program with community partners for the original blue and white neighborhood entryway signs to transform them into art in public places. This is a modified priority for fiscal year 23. Our projected outcomes is we will bring back a presentation of our existing sign master plan to City Council, provide you with some funding options, and a proposal for artistic program.
May I ask, the calculation of 300 staff hours, just help me understand, I'm sorry I didn't ask this before. How do you develop a number like that?
So our team created action agendas, and it is the framework of how they think they will accomplish the priority. And they considered when we're going to meet internally, when we're going to meet externally with stakeholders. It's the value of how much time we're putting into this, how we create a presentation to bring back to City Council, all of that being man hours to accomplish this priority.
Okay.
I do have a question on that. will we be working with the beautification committee that we elected members to on this priority? Will they be an integral part of this process?
Yes, sir. But as a foundation, we wanted to show City Council the existing sign master plan. It's been a while since it came to City Council. I believe the last year it was brought forth was 2012. And then also show you where the program is being funded out of and any type of funding shortfalls.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
And it goes without saying that you'll be researching grants for beautification for projects, not just this one, but anything that's at that level.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay.
Grants, any type of other communities that have this creative display, all of that in a comprehensive plan.
But only big city grants now. Okay.
Moving on, our next priority is seek out opportunities to engage Flagler County students on civic programs. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23. Our projected outcomes is coordinate with Flagler schools on creating a field trip for 7th grade students to learn more about local government. Activities include a mock council meeting and a tour of city facilities. This was after a great dialogue and discussion with Councilmember Finelli that we learned that 7th graders take civics, and this would be a great opportunity for maybe our council to engage and meet and greet with the students, let them sit at the dais and go through a tour of our city facilities. Oftentimes, our students don't know how robust our city is and all the services that we provide.
So is this a chance to pass the gavel?
Absolutely, sir.
Anything I can do to help or support this initiative, please let me know.
Thank you. Moving on to our next priority is staff will provide an inventory of potential facilities according to the public renaming policy in honor of Mayor John Netz. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23. City staff will come back with a presentation showing the renaming policy, including potential sites and already named facilities. And the projected budget here is any type of sign or monument that we would need to put in.
Do you have any ideas where or any?
We've heard of several, the community center being one, Waterfront Park being another. So really need to get with the family of Mayor Netz and incorporate their wishes into this
And
request.
Vice Mayor, you're thinking along the lines of it be obviously permanent for, eternity as opposed to it potentially being,
I think I brought
changed?
it up.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
I brought
good.
it up.
Thank you.
As
Thank you.
opposed to getting something that could
Right.
eventually change name, give them something the man deserves.
Thank you for
to
that.
be remembered for eternity over here in Palm Coast.
Yes, sir.
I got them right here, as usual. Every single meeting. Thank you.
Next slide is research other cities' communication strategies and on how they respond in proactive and reactive manners with social media applications. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23. Our communications department, they are members of the Florida Public Relations Association with monthly networking meetings, focused on projects, researching other cities for new engagement opportunities, initiating in-person quarterly meetings with local public information officers and communication officials, and projected outcome is increased engagement with residents, creating a model path to success for future communication efforts.
Will you include a discussion on social media community ambassadors? In other
Yes.
words, that would be staff members that are, engaging and, participating or collaborating with, networks focused on different areas or communities within the city.
Yes, Mayor, I took that as a note. Moving on to our next priority is ensure that the maintenance and operations facility is a top priority facility project and commence initial improvements based on our capital improvement plan timeline. This was previously named the Public Works Facility. It is now our maintenance and operations facility, where it will encompass stormwater and engineering, public works, as well as utility. There's progress to date as it is a continued priority. The master plan was presented to City Council and approval of design and construction management contracts were obtained. And in fiscal year 22 and 23, phase 1 design is underway. Projected outcomes is we will update the annual CIP, updating construction costs and revenue, seek construction management firm and design consultant team to bring contracts to the City Council for approval, a schematic design to be presented to City Council, and finally, in fiscal year 23, commencement of fleet facility.
I continue to be concerned about the completion of hardening of the infrastructure and the, I guess, potential for electronic attack. And the question I would ask you is, will you reach over at some point to our lobbyist and find out if appropriation funding might be appropriate for the hardening of these integral assets that need to be resilient and protected from attacks in order for the city to be safe and to continue to operate?
Yes, we can work with our, with the Southern Group on that. Moving on to our next priority is identify local recreation demands, including aquatics, field, senior services, etc., to balance the need of regional activity centers. A few objectives in this priority: staff to provide a branding outline that represents the community recreation needs for the southern extent of our city, prioritize projects on the Parks and Recreation Capital Improvement Plan. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23. Later this morning, you will hear staff present on the Southern Recreation Branding Outline. And then we are collaborating with Flagler County on a comprehensive countywide recreation master plan, which will give our Parks and Recreation master plan a refresh. It'll also gauge the interest of what the community is wanting to see in our community. There's a lot of changes, and the need for those level of services have changed throughout the years as well. And then through that visioning process and that community input, we will be able to provide prioritization of the projects on the CIP.
So understanding that the needs and services have changed through time, I would ask City Manager to have a dialogue with the county in particular, but our other collaborative partners on YMCA with an aquatic center that covers all of the new uses and new programs that are expected by our residents, both senior and younger, for the future. Because I understand that to be a long-term project, but no time like the present to, kind of start talking about it.
Understood. Our next priority is seeking out opportunities for the community center to relieve parking pressures through the following approaches, and that's the evaluating of the utilization of the community center playground, basketball courts, and tree area for additional parking, conducting a detailed analysis of city-owned lands and facilities in the vicinity of the community center to determine optimal use value, and repurpose Fire Station 22 to preserve historical value and expand visitor awareness of Palm Coast. This is a collaboration project manager between two departments, Fire and Parks and Recreation, because we have shared services at this facility area. Staff has completed an analysis of the playground and basketball court, an evaluation of current conditions of Fire Station 22 with cost estimates, completed draft drawings of a new parking lot, and city staff will conduct and present a final analysis to City Council with recommendations, and we're targeting this winter, sometime in December and January. And this is in line with our timing of our capital projects fund, of when we need to and can have additional funds for this priority.
And I think we've noted in the past that the fire station is not sustainable or renovatable for the long term.
Yes, sir. City staff will have that in their analysis of the cost value estimates of what it would take to preserve the facility and then other alternatives.
Thank you.
Our next priority is on high-value service contracts, provide adequate quality control to ensure contractual compliance. The project manager is administration. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23, and city administration will evaluate organizational alignment on high-value service contracts.
I only have one concern with this one here, and is if we are going to, for example, we have a contract with the sheriffs. Are we going to require quality control over the sheriffs? I don't know if, for example, are we going to have to do tell the sheriff what to do? I don't, this is what I see, quality control. I don't know.
I think the verbiage is levels of service. So what we do is in our contract, we define levels of service. So the job of quality control is just to report on whether we have achieved, overachieved, or underachieved the levels of service. But certainly there's no intent, in my opinion, to direct the sheriff's operation in any way. However, we will monitor the achievement of these defined level of services. That's the meat of the contract. That's why the reason we have a contract which is over and above what the county is required to offer is because our residents in the past have asked for additional services. So we just need to measure and monitor, not direct, measure and monitor that the value is there, that they're getting those services.
Yeah, this, to me, it's a lot like this civil review board, and trust me, those civil review boards create nothing but a problem the minute we say, listen, Sheriff, we are analyzing and we don't like what you're doing because of this and this and that. Well, then I think we're going to be opening a can of worms by telling the sheriffs, listen, we have a contract with you. You basically have to do what we want. I'm afraid of that.
No, I understand. So if we can be very, very specific on how we define the service levels. So, for example, like on the fire side, okay, we need to get to those folks within 3 minutes. Or we need to know that there were X number of calls to the sheriff, and they were responded to in whatever time the level of service required. There could be many other things, but if we can be very detailed, what it really is, it's just an evaluation of performance, basically, in terms of that special service that we're contracting for and paying for. I understand the concern.
The word quality control.
That may be not the best word. And the other point of this is that, certainly in my mind, this I guess person's responsibility would be, not responsibility, their own evaluation would be highly dependent on the achievement of the service levels that are set forth in the contract. That was the idea.
Our next priority.
I'm sorry, and did you note the Vice Mayor's, I think he makes a good point.
Yes. The next priority is develop a comprehensive cybersecurity plan to focus on safety and security of all infrastructure and critical functions. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23. Later this morning, you will hear IT present an overview of City Council on the efforts to date with an implementation plan, and that's later this morning.
This one, even though I had nothing to do with this, I could tell you one thing. In the days that we go by right now, I think that every penny we spent in this security, it's a well-spent penny, because that could destroy a city if they actually, come and ransom us.
Our next priority is collaborate with FPL and other stakeholders to provide electric vehicles fast charging stations across multiple locations in the city, engage local interest in expanding opportunities. This is assigned to administration. If you recall, back in June, we had our light team graduates here. This is our leadership intern training experience. And through city manager's vision, we have added this as a project of that light team. So we're currently seeking applicants through our organization, and this will be a project for them to complete for next year. We're looking forward to it.
Does this include our own fleet as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have a question on this.
Yes, sir.
Will these be charging stations with credit card? And will we get a slice of that?
Yes, we can look into those options, and the team would be able to present. And I believe there was also an intent in the objective to engage other local businesses as an opportunity if they would like to have one outside of their location, getting an inventory of that. Okay. Our next priority is conduct a solar feasibility study and expand the scope to include solar retrofits for current and future facilities, and also seek out grant opportunities. This is a modified priority. Our project manager is stormwater and engineering. Projected outcomes would be to complete an ROI as part of the Regional Racket Center design scope of work. Also an ROI on our MOC, our Maintenance and Operations Center, and an analysis of city existing facilities will be completed upon the findings from the Racket Center and the MOC projects and City Council's direction.
And I would just point out a link backwards to the priority regarding the westward expansion. Obviously represents an opportunity for solar feasibility, which may become a theme.
Our next priority is also a legislative priority. This is through a multifaceted approach, including TPO, collaboration with city lobbyists, and direct communication with our legislative team to encourage the inclusion of Phase 2 and Phase 3 of Old Kings Road widening in the FDOT 5-year work plan. This is assigned to economic development. This item has been on the TPO project list for several years, but it's not advanced. Staff pursued appropriation of Phase 1 of Matanzas Woods Extension, and our projected outcomes is develop a comprehensive strategy to obtain funding and hopefully get the funding. And our last priority is develop a plan for maintenance of the saltwater canals. This is a new priority for fiscal year 23. Its project manager is engineering. Our projected outcomes is to determine a source of project funding, a summary report of assessing the seawall conditions, conduct a bathymetric survey including sediment analysis, and a feasibility for additional dredging and recommendations for dredge material management.
I'm afraid of asking what bathymetric is, but go ahead.
And finally, to wrap up our presentation, we have summarized the funding that you will see in the budget process of where the funds will come from: economic development, information technology, our capital fund, communications and parks and recreation, and then community development.
So how many priorities did you just review?
20.
So that's 20. It's beyond my understanding, and maybe I'm short-minded, how in years past, how many priorities did you work on?
We had about 65.
65. So my lack of understanding is how to focus, narrow, and deep, and prioritize on such an incredibly large number. So I compliment staff on narrowing the focus based on the survey that was done, and coming out, limiting the number of priorities to 20, so that we can monitor, gauge, and enjoy successful results in many of these as the timeline, suggests. So thank you for your presentation.
Echo your words. I'll echo your words.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm happy to know that the lobbyists took plenty of notes.
So, Mayor and City Council, as just mentioned in our strategic action plan update, there was a discussion of identifying local needs and regional opportunities for the southern extent of our city. And James Hurst, our Director of Parks and Recreation, and I are going to take you on kind of a history and a visioning process for what does that mean. And Parks and Recreation amenities have been a pillar in our community since the creation of our community. And it's important to know our past and how we've gotten here, and we'd like to walk you through our future. During City Council's long-range visioning of Prosperity 2021, Parks and Recreation remaining a pillar, City Council directed staff to invest in sports tourism and local recreation. In 2008, the Parks Master Plan was created, and in the Parks Master Plan, the Palm Coast Tennis Center was designed to facilitate a larger complex in the future. If we fast forward to 2017, City Council priorities established a goal to revisit that master plan and identify future amenities for inclusion in the capital improvement plan. Then again in 2018, this priority was reaffirmed as evaluate town center and local other locations within the southern part of our city with all potential to incorporate a future premier multi-purpose recreation center that all generations are served. In 2019 and 2020, this same priority was modified to foster growth at the tennis center and expand the community's rich sport history. And finally, in 2021, this priority was geared towards the Regional Racket Center to serve as a multi-purpose center that offers flexible open space for community needs. This journey will help City Council with the current priority of recreation and set the vision for the future as we expand our footprint not only in the city but also with our recreational opportunities. So James, take it away.
Yeah. Well, good morning, City Council. James, Parks and Recreation. So before we get started, this kind of, I guess, text or comment was provided to us by the Historical Society, and it was back when ITT, their vision and then the recreational amenities for that, and I kind of thought this encapsulated everything we're trying to achieve for today in our northern and southern areas that we'll explain out through this presentation. Before we get started, for the last couple of years, Parks and Recreation have created a why statement and also have established our core values for Parks and Recreation. These sets of foundations for our team is how we interact with our participants and how they enjoy our facilities, our programs, and our events. Our why statement is to enhance community so that everyone feels welcome. Kind of brief history on the why statement. Our why statement is kind of what we thought is, why do we come to work every day for Parks and Recreation? And this is what our team came up with a couple of years ago. And so, again, we're just to enhance community so that everyone feels welcome. So then we hit into then we hit into kind of our core values, explore, connect, play. Underneath those, our team came up with the following, where we believe everything will be under for those core values. And then so where Explore, Connect, Play came from was a marketing concept that helped us enhance and create comprehensive recreation programs. We have a vast variety of offerings, and we always try to encourage our residents to explore our trails, connect our neighborhoods and communities, and then play with many of our programs and recreational offerings that we give. This kind of helps and brings our community together to reaffirm our mission as Parks and Recreation. And then we're kind of using this Explore, Connect, Play to kind of go through the following areas that we've identified as our northern recreation areas and our southern recreation areas to go along with that council priority that Lauren was mentioning earlier.
And we know from the Town Center Visioning Live, Work, Learn, Play that we showed you a story map through GIS, and we're going to take you through the same visioning process. Yeah. So this is our northern extent of the city, and it's going to zoom in as we go along. Yeah, there's a bigger map down at the end of this, but it kind of uses, I guess, the community center as kind of the central hub, and then from out there we would have, keep going down. It has the community center there, so it zooms in. It's really cool. Then we have Linear Park over there just by the community center. Then we have Holland Park, the golf course, and then we have Waterfront Park as well.
Then once we hit the southern area, again, there's a bigger map downstairs, but underneath. But you will see this. You've probably seen this before. I think Jordan did something with Town Center, and this was the map that she used as well. But if we keep going down the southern area, we'll have the tennis center that's currently there, the future Lehigh Trailhead, and then we'll have Central Park.
So we want to focus on showing City Council how a lot of our facilities in the northern encapsulate multiple generations, multiple sport disciplines. There's an opportunity for all. Our community center is reaching maximum occupancy. Even through COVID and even coming back being more resilient than ever, it's getting a lot more difficult to schedule community groups, have programs for seniors, incorporating any toddler experiences. So we're really seeing that the needs in our northern facilities are met, both indoor and outdoor. And our goal here is to show you and vision with you on the southern extent.
Yeah, and so the next couple of slides, so this is the bigger map I was talking about. So as Lauren was saying, provides a social hub for our current and future residents from diverse locations, and it's a great way to make some friends in the community. And then the next few slides is Linear Park and kind of what is at Linear Park. We have the Palmetto Trail, we got some mountain bike trails, a playground, classroom, butterfly garden, and then we have the community center after that one where we host a variety of programs. We have room rentals so everyone can connect, socialize with each other. We have meetings. We also have the playground and the basketball court in the back. Then we have Holland Park, which is kind of we designated as our play, and we have all different kinds of activities out there. We got the basketball courts, bocce ball courts, playground, everything you can think of, I think, is really out there. So then we look at our southern area. So you've probably seen this map before. So this is where we would have Central Park, Lehigh Trailhead, and then the tennis center. So there's a whole bunch of cultural arts, healthy activities, events that go on in the southern area, and this is what we're trying to present today, is just how great this is. And then if we keep going through, we have some events and festivals throughout Central Park. Keep going down. This is the new future for the Lehigh Trailhead. We have a couple of community gardens. We have a dog park, and then this is access to Lehigh Trail. And then at the top, there's a restroom up there. Central Park, we always have community events out there. It has walking trail and you can fish, so it's a great amenity to have there. And then this is the Southern Recreation Facility. So it would be keeping with our 10 clay courts. Then we would have some pickleball courts and then a new recreation facility there. And then obviously we would have tennis programs and lessons for everyone. Tournaments, special events, and then for the future, we would see pickleball programs, lessons for everyone, room rentals, meetings, and even exercise programs, kind of as we see the community center from in the northern area.
So we would like to mirror our successful concept at our Palm Coast Community Center down here in the south or southern part of our extent of our city by making what was our regional Rocket Center more of that community and encompassing all atmosphere. It was indicated several times, as I mentioned, in the timeline of our City Council priority dating back from 2017. And that is our visioning process.
So I have two thoughts, and this is a workshop, so please, I invite everybody to participate. Number one, our liaison to the TDC is?
Councilmember Clufus.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to ask for an update at some point on the grant funding from Ttdc, which is outstanding for our pickleball court grant.
So city staff completed and executed the grant for TDC submission. We also, per the grant process, met with the TDC director, Ms. Lukasik, And we submitted our proposal, and we take it to the TDC board on July 19th. And then it goes to the Board of County Commissioners for adoption in August.
And how much was the request?
Max, which was around $730,000. I believe we were the only applicant submitted in the process. So
Can we put that in the books?
it
Don't
was-
ask her. Okay. The other question I have, equally important, is that you mentioned in Parks and Rec, a cornerstone of your program is the connect piece and the socialization piece. So, the strategic action plan plus this presentation are also collaborative to a certain extent. The big miss, and I'm not quite sure this is the best place to bring it up, that I don't see in the strategic action plan is identifying mental health as a priority to be looked at for the city of Palm Coast, but not the city of Palm Coast. I think we all are resigned to the fact that the mental health problem is significant and far outreaches the boundaries of the city of Palm Coast and encompasses not just all of Flagler County, but the region. So certainly a regional approach, which I think, City Manager, you've identified as one of your missions, is to collaborate with the county and the others and then beyond on how mental health can at least be threaded through our program. I don't want it just to be ignored. In other words, I want it to continue to be a priority even though we don't have an answer or a solution on deck at this moment.
And to add just regarding the TDC, please don't miss any deadlines. Thank you.
Council members, any comments?
I'm good.
So
Thank you.
Good.
I have to say, this is one of the things that I love the most about Palm Coast, having a young family. There are just so many amenities, and you provide so many great experiences and opportunities to our citizens in the community. It's what makes us unique and special, and that's why so many people want to live here. So thank you for all of the hard work you do. It doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated.
You're welcome. Our staff does a fantastic job, so.
Well said.
Well said. Very good. Thank you very much for the presentation. And moving down the agenda, we'll move to the IT, cybersecurity, and initiatives, as the Vice Mayor pointed out, incredibly important for today and tomorrow.
Fire sneak to questions with intelligent questions that I can't.
Good morning. Of course, as you heard earlier, cybersecurity is a council priority for this year. I appreciate the acknowledgement of how important this area is. And this morning, my goal is really to underscore and showcase the critical nature of cybersecurity, and also help maybe bring understanding to how far-reaching and time-intensive it can be for our staff to deal with this area of cybersecurity. I'm going to speak in very general terms as far as our posture and our approach to cybersecurity, because we are in a public forum, but more than happy to answer any questions in private regarding to where we stand as a city related to this initiative. So understanding cybersecurity, I think sometimes it can be misconstrued that cybersecurity can be a product that you take and just plug in, and once you do, you're safe and you're good. It is ultimately more complex than that. It covers so many different topics. When you think about the components of a cybersecurity program, you're thinking about employee training, helping them understand how to recognize phishing emails and social engineering. Physical security, you're guarding access to the physical servers as well as the equipment. Asset management, knowing where your assets are at all times, where the computers are at all times. Supply chain management is a big one, knowing where your hardware comes from, what vulnerabilities may be in it. Not only that, but also software. Software has a lot of different dependencies. One of the big vulnerabilities recently is the Log4j vulnerability. It's a logging software in Java that a lot of different platforms use, And so understanding what our different software platforms depend upon and what the weaknesses are in those. Also monitoring vulnerabilities, knowing that new issues are being found every day, monitoring those and seeing what's in our network and applying appropriate patches. That also encompasses patch management, which is a whole another breed of animal. You start issuing patches in your environment and you break other things, so it involves more work to fix those. It's process and policies, endpoint detection, application security, network security, disaster recovery planning. If we were to have a breach, how do we recover from that? And also operational continuity planning, so that if we were to have a breach, how do we continue doing businesses if our systems are not available? It's also a growing field. A new area of cybersecurity that's emerging is chaos engineering. So this is an area that's with us, that's here to stay, and it's constantly growing and evolving, and we're always going to be doing cybersecurity as a city. It's just the world we live in now.
Well, I'm sorry, chaos engineering?
Chaos engineering, so not to get too deep into it, but a lot of the larger companies like Netflix and Hulu, who have massive networks and servers, are implementing this new idea where they pretty much go into a production system and just try to explode it to figure out where the weaknesses are. So it's just another indication of how this discipline is constantly growing and evolving as we continue to go along.
Thank you.
So cybersecurity really is a balancing act of ease of use and convenience and security. So if we want to be totally secure, we can just unplug the networks, give the calculators back to finance, and go back to the way we always did things before. But that's not really reality in the way we live nowadays. So it's a balancing act of how do we have the convenience of software, but also make sure that we're secure. So it's really about risk management. So it's important to understand that attacks are not 100% preventable, but we do our best to make sure we are secure against those attacks. Checkpoint Software is a company that provides security-related services. They did an analysis year over year of the type of attacks that organizations see. Education and research is the #1 type of organization as far as the number of attacks per organization per week, and trailing second is only government and military. So what this graph is showing is that government and military institutions on average see about 1,136 attacks per week per organization. And that's an increase of 47% over the last year. So this is just something that's continuing to grow. And that's something we're seeing here at the city as well. So we are seeing various attack attempts here at the city. In the past month, our antivirus has detected and blocked 46 different viruses. Our email filter blocks anywhere from a few hundred on a slow day, usually the weekends, to around 3,000 emails blocked. Some of you a few weeks ago asked about an increase in spam that came through. We were doing some maintenance on that device, and so while it was down, all those emails were coming through. So it blocks a large volume. So typically, only between 1/4 to 1/20th of the emails that we receive are legitimate emails. The rest are all spam or junk emails, so it's a very large volume. Not only that, but people will try to bombard our email server. We can receive in a range between thousands to tens of thousands of requests, illegitimate, to our email server every day, just trying to do something nefarious. Also, there's a high probability of access. One firm, Positive Technologies, said here in 93% of cases, this is a company that does penetration testing, so they try to get into a network to see if they can gain access where the weaknesses are. In their research, they found 93% of cases an external attacker can breach an organization's network perimeter and gain access to local network resources. And it takes an average of 2 days to do so. In 100% of those cases where they gained access, they were able to gain full control over the infrastructure. So very alarming statistics there. Verizon every year puts out this data breach investigations report where they analyze different incidents and breaches that happen across the globe. This year they analyzed over 23,000 incidents and 5,200 confirmed breaches to give us statistics on these. And the next few slides are from this report. So ransomware over time, again, nothing that we're not aware of, but we can see that ransomware is increasing exponentially. You would think with some of the awareness that's going on that it would decrease, but it's actually growing. Cyber criminals are becoming more organized. You can now buy ransomware as a service on the dark web. If you wanted to perform an attack against a company, didn't have the resources to do so, you can purchase it. Also, social engineering as a service. So if you wanted to perform a social engineering attack against a company and you wanted to outsource to a larger crime organization that had the resources to do so, you can pay for those. When a network was breached, they found 4 key access points to how that access was gained. The first was through credentials, whether they were lost or stolen. The second was through phishing. The third was through exploitation of vulnerabilities, and the last one was through botnets. This one, it's always good to see one that goes down, and this is breaches by misconfiguration. I thought this was important to include to show that sometimes staff misconfiguring software or hardware can leave a door open for a breach. So it's important to ensure that our staff are able to work in a manner where they're paying attention to what they're doing, they're not rushing through things, and that they're configuring things properly so they're not leaving those doors open for attack. Again, this is from Cobot.io. Those 2 bullet points that are bolded there says 90% of all data breaches are linked to phishing attacks, and 98% of attacks use social engineering. So again, it's very important that our end users understand how to detect phishing attacks and social engineering techniques. We can do all we can on the hardware side to make sure that we're secure, but all it takes is one phone call and someone to mess up and give out information they shouldn't to breach our network. I think a lot of times when we think about these types of things, phishing and social engineering, we think about the guy in the field or customer service, and we think that IT should really, we're more knowledgeable than that. We don't get compromised through IT, but really we're just as vulnerable as anywhere else. So I want to show you this segment, a few minutes from CNN, where they had some white hat hackers compromise a IT department and gain access to the network, just to show you really how simple it could be for a threat actor to gain access.
What do you think of when I say the word hacker? Some creepy dude in a basement? Well, that's a misconception. What if I told you there's a class of hackers who don't just have social skills, they have more social intelligence than anyone you'll ever meet? David Kennedy is one of them. He's what's known as a social engineer, or a people hacker. His craft is to dupe you into doing things and sharing information you probably shouldn't.
Can I just get your credit card number?
Some use it for illegal activity. In David's case, companies pay him to find out if employees are leaving the company vulnerable. He and his team show us how it's done. Step 1, spoof his number so it looks like he's calling from inside the company, and then call tech support.
Hello, you there? Hello?
Hi, this is Ken. How may I help you?
I was wondering if you can take a look at a website I'm trying to get to. It's for a big customer thing I'm working on for Monday, and I can't seem to get to the website from my computer.
Sure. What's the website? I'll see if I can get to it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the help. I mean, it could be a stupid thing. I'm really stuck with computers, but so it's www.survey. That's SURVEY -pro.com.
Yeah, I got a prompt to open. I just put open, and I'm at the site now.
Here's what the IT guy doesn't realize. By clicking that link, he's just given David full access to his computer.
Whoa, okay, that's weird. I just hit it and it works. It seems like it's working fine now. Awesome. I don't know what you did, man, but I really appreciate the help.
Hey, no problem. That was easy.
That was it?
We're on his computer right now.
You are able to take over this guy's computer within, I would say, like, under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes, yeah. Under 2 minutes, took over his entire computer, and think of it as not just his computer, but it's pretty much a downfall of the entire company.
So you can see how easy it is for someone just through a few phone calls and few tools gain access to your system. So potential consequences of a cyber attack, of course, one is loss of data or financial loss. Ransomware, again, is a big issue. People are trying to even use ransomware as a misdirection, so they'll encrypt your systems and then try to quickly exfiltrate data. Also, there's an interruption of critical systems such as first responder systems, utilities, or traffic controls. Interruption of daily operations, permitting, local business tax, utility billing. We know in Atlanta, when they had their cyber attack, their systems were down for 5 days. That's a long time to be without technology systems. Also, loss of reputation. I was born and raised here. I'd never heard of Oldsmar, Florida until they had cyber attack. And now you think of Oldsmar, could be a great place to live. But the first thing I think of is that attack they had and how their utility was almost compromised due to a cyber attack. As you heard earlier from the Southern Group, cybersecurity bill just passed, goes into effect this Friday. It prohibits state agencies and local governments from paying or otherwise complying with ransomware demands. So it's now illegal for us to pay for a ransomware demand. It requires local governments to adopt cybersecurity standards that safeguard the local government's data, information technology, and information technology resources. And for a city our size, that deadline for us is January 1st, 2024. And also requires state agency and local government employees to undergo certain cybersecurity training within 30 days of employment and annually thereafter. And again, the Florida Digital Service, which is founded in 2020 by Governor DeSantis, is responsible for creating that training. So some general strategies for us. One thing we're going to do is focus on the IT workload. Again, I think making sure they're not overwhelmed by requests that are coming in, overwhelmed by projects, and so they feel competent when they are configuring things and doing work. They're not missing simple things and leaving doors open. We have a citywide training program that does include cybersecurity elements. How do they recognize phishing emails? How do you identify social engineering attempts? How do you identify if your computer is possibly compromised? For the next year, we are looking to add a cybersecurity position for focused attention on this to help alleviate existing staff in reviewing vulnerabilities, reviewing exploits as they come out, and also to have a third party perform a cybersecurity review of our network and give us an idea of kind of where we stand from an outside perspective. And again, I am glad to discuss any specific strategies that we have or concerns you have with you outside of a public forum.
So Doug, thank you for the presentation. You certainly put the fear of the electron in us. A couple quick things. We own a fiber net loop. Does that offer us an advanced level of protection in any way?
I don't know if it offers us an advanced level of protection, but it helps us in having a network that is private to us, so we're not riding on somebody else's network. So it does give us more security in that sense.
So more security. Okay, that was one. Number two, I just learned this from city manager the other day. The City Hall was designed originally as a public space. I mean, it is the public's space. However, with it being so open and inviting, do these hackers sometimes use proximity in terms of coming into the building? Does that help them in any way gain access to our system, or is it all from the outside in?
No, it definitely, I think it gives them assistance if we are lax and maybe leaving systems open or leaving places where they can plug into and gain access to things. Besides that, there's also the social engineering side where they can come in and start talking to people and figure out who your supervisor is and just gaining familiarity, which helps when you do an email attack because you have that familiar data.
So as we look at safety and security procedures throughout the building in light of, modern and current times, I would hope that would be, a part of the consideration. And then I don't know whether to be annoyed or embarrassed, but you predated me to a calculator. I actually predate the calculator. I was handed a slide rule when I first started engineering school. So we appreciate you and your efforts because it is a challenge for most of us, not so much the younger generation, but to keep up with the accelerating pace of change in this IT world. It's mind-boggling to many. So, we look forward to young, fresh minds that you will bring through your department to perhaps, help protect us in the future.
I appreciate that, Mayor.
Anybody else have a comment?
I think he's doing a hacker of a job.
Okay, thank you.
That's a prank.
Thank you for the presentation. I can't top that.
You can't.
Just one question. So the hackers, are we seeing a lot of that coming from overseas, or is it more local based, or is it a mixture of both?
It's kind of all over the place. So when you think of threats, there's the nation states, there's also hacktivists, there's local guys, but what we're seeing is kind of all over the place. Again, it's hard to tell where that's really coming from. You can use VPNs to kind of hide where you're at, but we are seeing, based on IP addresses, things from everywhere.
It's coming from everywhere.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, and just one last compliment. I know that whenever, at least I'm assuming every one of us reaches out to your staff in the IT department, they are ready, willing, and able on the spot to lend assistance because we oftentimes need it. So please, pass along our sincere thanks to the effort and the commitment that they all make.
Well, these things would keep me up at night, but I have a lot of confidence in our staff, so I sleep very well.
Yeah,
so
me
I
too.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next presentation is our final presentation today will be the Community Development Department update.
Good morning, City Council.
Good morning.
Members, Ms. Bevan, Ray Tyner, Deputy Chief Development Officer. Next to me is Mr. Patrick Buckley. He's our Chief Building Official. We're going to do a tag team presentation on the update of our Community Development Department. Last year, we created a 5-year plan for the planning and building and code enforcement in our Community Development Division. And our vision is to promote high-quality development and appearance through a business-friendly approach. Our mission, of course, is delivering exceptional service by making citizens our priority. We got with our department to come up with how are we going to accomplish these missions and this statement, and we see all employees as people, always do that. We remove obstacles to our employees so they can be successful in their workplace. We celebrate our achievements, we invest in our employees' development, and we value the input equally from all employees. We do a lot of teamwork. Our core values, we will never waver from our core values, and that includes family, integrity, trust, and honesty. And it's so important for our team to keep these core values. It makes for a better team, it makes for better customer service, and we value their development and value them as people. As you know, but for the public's sake, community development has 3 divisions. We have our planning division, ensuring that all publics, we focus on our comprehensive plan, our Unified Land Development Code. We provide technical reviews for site development. We do engineering reviews, zoning requirements. We include architectural, floodplain, and environmental protection. And of course, we also have the long-range planning that we focus on, and we manage the Community Development Block Grant Program. Our building division protects the safety of the public by enforcing our Florida Building Code through intaking, processing permits, providing plan reviews, and inspection services. We have our Code Enforcement Division is committed to ensuring that the built environment is maintained to the adopted level of service detailed in all of our codes for the city. Our code enforcement also includes urban forestry, animal control, and licensing. What we're going to focus today is the planning division and building division. And we'll first talk about the planning division. We are from the general fund. Our full-time employees are 18.66. The reason they're 18.66 is that, our site development team, we allocate some funds out of the general fund. It may come from stormwater or utility as well for our site development team. Right now, we are seeing a lot of growth. That's obvious. And we are seeing an increase in our second-party survey reviews. That is a state requirement for all platting subdivision process. The state statute requires us to provide a second-party survey. So, of course, we're still within our budget, but we, it is concerning us, and we allocate a little bit more money that we do have in the budget for the second-party surveys. Of course, we see the increase in advertising fees. This is almost like a pass-through. When we do require the advertisement, we pay for it, but we do get that reimbursed by the applicants for our newspaper ads that goes back into the general fund. Again, as I mentioned, we are quite busy. These are development orders. These are applications that come into planning. We go through our technical review process, and this is for this fiscal year. So far, we have issued 47 applications, development orders. Those were ranging from, master site plans, subdivision master plans, preliminary plats, final plats, and our technical site plans, special exceptions, and lot splits. So we are seeing quite a bit of activity, of course. Now, some of these, I have them all listed here, but some of them could be duplicate too. That doesn't mean that there's 47 projects. It goes through a master site plan first, and then it goes through a technical. And our subdivision process has three processes. Our site development permits, this is after you receive a development order. You would receive a site development permit to complete the infrastructure work. We have issued 21 site development permits this year, and what this means, that means our site inspectors are very busy of completing their inspections for the horizontal work, the utilities, the stormwater, ponds, the roadways, and those type of things for the inspections. Our planning division, since this year, we had, when it comes to staffing matters, Bill Hoover was one of our senior planners that retired this year. And as a result, what we ended up doing, it is very difficult of hiring planners out there. It's the way the market is. I've never seen it like this in my 20 years of trying to get senior planners and planners with a lot of experience. So what we did, and it's actually part of our succession planning, we promoted this year Estelle Lenz. She does have a certified professional AICP certification for planning. She started here at the City of Palm Coast as a zoning technician, and she worked her way up through the ranks and acquired a lot of skills, and she is doing a bang-up job. I'm very impressed with Estelle and how she's really catching on and doing a great job. Jordan Myers was an environmental technician, again, part of that succession planning. Estelle was recently promoted to planner, environmental planner. Estelle is focusing more on the long-range rezonings right now, helping Jose and being mentored by Jose on comprehensive planning. Estelle is more on the current planning side, site plan, special exceptions, and is being mentored by myself and Dennis Leap, one of our site development managers, and they're both acquiring skills at a very fast level and doing a great job. We still have an open position for a senior planner and another planner position, so we are crossing our fingers. We have our, we have a lot of work to do next year, next fiscal year, as you know, for the comprehensive planning. There's going to be a lot of work with that, and we're hoping that we can acquire a senior planner sometime in the near future. Last year, one of our key performance indicators that we did that City Council approved was, I want to give you what the progress of this. It's kind of titled Development Partnership. Basically, it's simple. When you look at the KPI, it's providing our planning board the agenda package 5 business days in advance of a public meeting, 100% of the time. Seems pretty simple, but it's very, very complicated, meaning there's a lot of moving parts, okay? When an application comes in, staff reviews it, gives our comments out, the application comes in, same thing until we meet that land development code. After they meet that, the planner, project manager needs to write the staff report, and council has seen the analysis and the work that goes and is involved with the staff report. Once that's completed, then that's reviewed by, myself, Jason, the administration, reviewing that as well, our clerk's office. So, and then it has to be, put on the agenda, sent out to the planning board members. So, our staff has really had a lot of pressure last year, rushing, the development community. We really need to get this on the agenda next month. Well, we need to get everything completed, as far as comments. It's a partnership, right? So what we ended up doing is creating specific guidelines and standards and level of service of when things are due and when application comes in, not only for staff, but also for the applicants that come in. So, for example, when you do bring an application to us, we're going to require that application be submitted correctly, that you have all the information in that application, or else we're not going to review it. That's your responsibility, okay? If you don't have the environmental report or the wetland, delineation, and you have a plan in there, what's that going to do? Well, our environmental planner is not going to review, and then the second submittal, maybe there's a houses or infrastructure that's going to be in a wetland system. It's just going to waste everybody's time, not only the city, but also the applicant as well. So we want to make sure that's completed. That's their responsibility, right? So when that comes in, our review process, we have a level of service to review those comments as a first submittal, 15 days. Then we give that back. Then they have a responsibility to address those comments. Then we have 10 days. So there's responsibilities and really clear direction on both parties on achieving success. And then once the application's ready, we'll put it on the agenda for planning board. Everybody has time to review it, and when that project comes to city council, which most of them do, when they go to the planning board, you have a quality project, hasn't been rushed, and it just works out for everybody. So it has been a key success for us. We did a presentation early this year about our customer satisfaction survey for the building division. And I think Mr. Buckley will go through and update you on that customer satisfaction. We did not complete that for the planning side. We finally did. We've got it running and have the survey for our TRX team. And let me explain what the TRX team is. We call it Technical Review Team. It's a team of staff members, not just from the planning division, but it includes a planner, our site development manager, who's an engineer who looks at grading and engineering, includes utilities to look at water and sewer lines, those technical when the site plan comes in. We have our environmental planner that's looking at all the environmental aspects of an application, including floodplain management. We have our stormwater utility engineer, part of that team, looking at that team. So it's a team, and our landscape architect as well, and also Mr. Buckley from a building side. We incorporate that into the early process, looking at access, fire protection, can a fire truck, the hydrant. So having Mr. Buckley and his team as part of that initial process has been wonderful. So that team, we meet every Wednesday. It's free. It's open to folks who want to do due diligence, new applications, pre-applications, even existing applications that they still have issues that they need to resolve. We come together as partnership and as a team approach. A lot of it on Zoom where you can do highlights, and there's really good, clear communication. This process has been so successful for us, and we were very excited to have our customer survey, satisfaction survey out, and as you can see here, we've been ranking 4.9 out of 5 of all the comments that we have provided. We also have notes, how can we improve the process, but it's been very successful. I'm not going to read through some of the comments that are here. You have it in front of you, but I will read one. One is the last one, I'll go ahead and read that. I do land development, engineering, and surveying from the Florida Keys to Jacksonville and from Melbourne to Tampa. This is the most logical and well thought out pre-application process that I have experienced. So we're getting a lot of positive feedback from folks. And our local folks, they know our process. The reason I read the last one, because they don't do a lot of work here. So having folks who are, you know, nationals or someone, an engineer that's not local, having them say this to get them on the right path to navigate through our system, I think is value for everybody. Then I'm gonna go ahead and go through that. And now I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Buckley. He's gonna talk a little bit about our building division.
Good morning. I'm sorry, Bill, before you start, do you want questions on this part or want me to wait till the end?
It's up to you, Mayor.
Bill, if you would, just so I don't dilute, because the two different phases here.
Sure.
Could you take me back to the slide on site development? So I'm looking over at the left side. So to date, and that's this year,
Yes,
so
sir.
we're looking at 3 multifamily, 7 single-family subs, and 11 commercial projects. That's it.
That's it, yes, sir.
So after we swim through the rip currents of public comment and social media, the bottom line is that's all it is. It's not thousands or exaggerated or unbelievable growth. Those are the real numbers.
These are the numbers that have approval and that we're actually doing construction
Okay.
at this time. Yes.
All right. And then the other question I have, and Bill, again, apologies, is the discussion regarding school concurrency currently delaying or postponing any of our City of Palm Coast development work?
Not at this time.
None. Thank you.
Good morning. The building division operates as an enterprise fund in the city, a little bit different than a general fund. That's due to Florida statutes in that requirement that the revenue collected by the building departments are segregated from other funds and only used for enforcement of the Florida Building Code. In that regard, our division has a very narrow scope of work, and that is simply just to enforce the Florida Building Code through permit intake, routing, review, inspections, and pretty narrow amount of work. That said, we have right now currently 24.63 FTEs assigned to the division, and we have one additional position to fill at this time. Our like the other department divisions in community development, our budget is top heavy in personnel services. We have a few code books and a few computers, but a lot of people doing a lot of different things. So far this year, we've identified some budget concerns. Like everybody right now, fuel and the skyrocketing prices have put us well over in that line item. And we project that that'll continue for the foreseeable future, as with the rest of the country and the news that we're hearing about those prices and that sort of thing. Overtime is a big issue for our staff, trying to keep up with the numerous inspections and plan reviews and so forth. We have a very dedicated staff, and they're willing to put in the hours and the work necessary to provide good building inspections on our various products, residential and commercial products out there. One of our biggest concerns moving forward, and it affects us in a variety of ways, are private providers. I won't go into too much detail there. I hope you're all familiar with the role of private providers in Florida. Generally speaking, private companies that are able to contract directly with contractors or local governments, primarily contractors, to provide building plan review and inspection services in the same manner as the local government. That business model has grown exponentially in the last 20 years in Florida. Our legislature finds it in their best interest to continue to lower the bar for private providers, carving out more work for them. And so we compete with them in a variety of ways. Again, they can take work away from the city by working directly with customers who are doing permitted work in the city. They also compete with us labor-wise as far as hiring qualified building inspectors and making it more difficult for the local governments to compete in that sector. So this is a 24-month, actually it's a little bit longer than that, I think, 19, 20, a little longer than that. But that's our building permit projections since June of 2019 through the end of May of this year. As you can see, that's all building permit types, application types. A vast majority of applications are obviously issued permits as well. Probably better than 99.8% actually turn into building permits. You can see the trend over the last several months increasing. Those would include all permits, from new commercial work to new residential work to your one-off permits for water heater replacements, air conditioning replacements, all the work that we do.
So if I put a new roof on, that'd be a permit?
Yes, sir. Related, here's our single-family permits. Also seeing a strong and continued linear increase in activity over time. You'll notice a spike in February, I believe it is, 21, a high monthly issuance of 282 permits, tailed off slightly and consistent with some of the supply chain issues and COVID issues that began really focusing in the late 21. There was a dip in activity there. We've recovered for the most part from that. That dip was forecasted as the home builders began pulling back. Labor shortages, material shortages, significant material shortages and delays. The building division created some processes to assist builders during that time to help them get through some of that by the way we constructed our inspection process to meet their needs for things like truss shortages and window shortages and things of that nature, to keep them going, allow them to apply for their permits and can get their work product out to issued permit status. It's interesting that although there was a fairly significant dip in activity for several months, our workload did not decrease by any stretch of the imagination, as the next slide will indicate.
Bill, do you attribute some part of the angle of that slope to local inventory? That aging is not the right word, but the homes are getting older and need permits or are asking for permits for upgrades, like I mentioned the roof before.
Sure.
Is that affecting the angle of that slope?
I believe it is.
Okay.
We haven't done hard analysis, but like everybody else, the people being home during COVID, people having some expendable income, believe it or not, during these tough times, there's certainly increased the number of homeowner projects. And so re-roofs, small additions, remodels, alterations, people putting money, redoing, upgrading air conditioning systems, that sort of thing. There's a lot of one-off permits out there, absolutely.
Thank you.
So this is where our real time is spent. Inspections, every permit has multiple inspections, right, except for the one-off permits, right? We do one inspection, two inspections for a lot of permit types, from hurricane shutters to window replacements to air handling unit replacements. But new construction, housing and commercial often require, somewhere around 15 inspections on a given house, upwards of 20, 30, 40 inspections in a commercial building. Repeat inspections, as we do go back for re-inspections to correct items and that sort of thing. This it doesn't surprise me, as our inspectors are telling me every day about how difficult it is to meet their obligations. But although we saw some dip in permit activity for really different reasons, we didn't see a dip in inspection activity at all. And we feel that there was a lot of housing that was in the pipeline that was issued, but sitting where the permits were issued, but the builders had to start it, hadn't broken ground. And although the new permit applications went down, they had that inventory sitting there ready to go. And so they continued, pouring foundations, continued construction, laying up block, getting the house ready to go. And so our inspections have increased and been really at the upper limits of our abilities. We have some extremely high service levels in turning around permit applications, 5 business days for residential construction, which is hit about 98% of the time, maybe 99% of the time, and that's unheard of right now anywhere in Florida. Extremely efficient processes, and the same for inspections. We don't roll inspections over from one day to the next. We get them done, which has been challenging considering our next slide, but that's kind of a review of our really what we do every day is the inspection. That's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. Current staffing matters for the division. We've been successful in increasing our staff over time. I've been with the city almost 3 years. We've been running job advertisements for 3 years, and we are finally getting some success. We've had 6 new hires in the last 12 months. These folks have proven so far to be very good hires and are proving to be valuable, developing and skilled inspectors. And we hope they stay with us. We are giving them all kinds of training as much as they want, and trying to find the time to be able to give them the training that they need and the opportunity to improve themselves through earning multiple certifications and improving their pay and that sort of thing. We've only had 1 replacement in the last 12 months, and we've had 5 new certifications required by state law, certifications, so you can either do plan review or inspections in various disciplines. You have to prove yourself to the building code administrators and inspectors board that you have the necessary qualifications. And we've had a few motivated staff members who have sought out additional inspector and plans examiner certifications, which is of huge value to the city and provides tremendous efficiencies as we continue to try to reach our service levels every month. We have 1 open position still, a building inspector. We're actually going to have 4 interviews set up for the week after next, and we hope by filling that position that we will become, for the first time in 3 years, fully staffed and allow us to continue to improve our efficiencies. Go ahead. This is the building division's key performance indicator. It's related to staff development. Basically what I just touched on, the ability for our staff, our inspectors and plans examiners to obtain multiple certifications to allow them to work in multiple disciplines, whether it's in review of plans, a plan reviewer that can sit down at the computer and review plans for building code compliance, also mechanical, plumbing, energy conservation, that sort of thing, fire prevention code. We perform the fire prevention code reviews for the city as well. And same for inspections. If we can send 1 inspector to a home and perform all the inspections rather than sending 2 or 3 folks to the home, and same for commercial work, that is a huge benefit to the city, and it also helps the contractors dealing with 1 person for their project. And so it's mutually beneficial. So that is the key directive that we're trying to improve upon as we move forward. Consistent with the TRX satisfaction survey, We had 5 permit questions that we sent out in a survey based on the permit application and issuance process, and then we have 4 additional questions related to the inspection process. Go ahead. Keep going. So those are our scores. Looks like planning has set the bar pretty high at 4.9, and we're coming in a little bit straggling behind there, but we are pretty proud of these numbers as well. Our permit center, under Ms. Barbie Bembry's supervision, deals with a tremendous number of processes and permit intake, permit routing, and that's not just to plans examiners, but the permit process includes the routing for reviews by every other city department that's involved in review, and of course when those reviews come back completed, then coordinating and getting the permits ready for review, for issuance, calculating and applying fees, making sure that the permits meet all the legal requirements of the state of Florida, that sort of thing, and we do that 15,000 times a year. And so those are very good numbers in my opinion. So we have some of the questions that we ask on the issuance process. Did you find useful information on the building services website? That's important because a vast majority of our work is done electronically through the city's permitting portal with very, very limited amounts of paper coming across the desk. Almost everything is done electronically, and it's very efficient for both us on the city side and for the customer. Rate the ease of use of the online permitting portal with staff able to answer all your questions. Rate the completeness and accuracy of review comments, and did we meet your expectations for courtesy and communication? Very important facets of any business to be able to get their work reviewed. On the permit final survey questions, which is a little better scores, 4.9. A little surprising because this is where our inspectors are out, rubbing elbows with our customers. Sometimes, not very often, but we do have a few disagreements on how the code's going to be applied and what our job is and what our role is. But these 4 permit questions, the ease of requesting inspections, the knowledge and disposition of the inspector, timeliness of the inspector, and the overall inspection process. So despite having a few disagreements, obviously, throughout the year, we get pretty good remarks that's attributable to a staff that is knowledgeable, able to explain the reasoning, able to be consistent, able to communicate well with people who obviously are pressed for deadlines and are trying to get their work done and get their product delivered to their customer. And so those are very rewarding numbers, we believe. So that's it.
Mr. Buckley talked about the internship program. That's really key of developing those skills from even new folks that are coming in to have a comprehensive knowledge and building. Same holds true for planning. It's all really part of succession planning, providing those skills, providing an avenue for employees to grow with the city of Palm Coast. One example I remember is we hired an intern at Utility that came over, this was 10 years ago or more, started as an intern, providing more skills, providing that avenue to become a land development technician, a senior land development technician, then a planner, then a site development supervisor. So that's what we really constantly tried to strive for, to provide those educational opportunities, make it a pleasant environment. It's really a tough environment, but the folks both in planning, as you heard Mr. Buckley, trying to adhere to the codes, but also meet those level service performance standards, and the special folks that are working here to create citizens, our top priority is key, and we continue to do that. Senior planner, of course, can become a chief development officer and a deputy chief, and then a chief development officer. We try to keep those avenues. But we are here for any questions that you may have.
So I applaud both of you on your attention to the customer service surveys, but my comment to Bill is, there's no rule against collaborating as a team, but competing to beat the pants off the other guy in your next survey. So have at it, and I appreciate the challenges that you all face.
Thank you.
I just also congratulate you on the customer satisfaction, because 4.9 out of 5, it's not good. It's beautiful. It's unimaginable. But I'm very happy, and I've had that experiences every time I went to you or even to Patrick. I had my answers right there. So if the people out there are getting any close to that, they got to be satisfied. Just one quick question. I think I know the answer, but when was the last time that you gave us an update on this development department?
I don't recall. Probably sometime. Well, we did the customer service satisfaction survey this year, but probably last year was the.
I think it was 2 years ago, but still, that was just. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. But no, I just asked for the.
Yeah.
Because
this
is good. This is good to know.
Yes, sir.
The only thing that actually I had a little concern is, and Mr. Patrick said that 68% of the budget is for personal service, and one of the concerns was overtime. And here, talking about overtime, are people coming early and leaving late? Or when was the last time that we had a building inspected done after 5 or on weekends to create that overtime? Or where this overtime coming from, out of curiosity?
All of the above, but primarily Monday through Friday, we have very little calls for inspections on the weekend. We do have a process for that, but for the most part, it is 10 guys that are arriving a half an hour early in the morning, right? An hour early, or staying a half an hour late past, their end of the day is 4 o'clock. So if they have their inspection load, it continues, they don't stop at 4 o'clock, they go until their inspections are done that day, so.
So they come early and leave late?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from city council members?
Thank you so much for the presentation and keep up the great job. Thank you.
Councilman Finelli?
Thank you for how comprehensive and thorough your processes are to ensure that we have good quality structures being built. I know personally 2 years ago, I had some work done and had to pull a permit. It failed inspection twice. And I appreciate that from you guys, because now I know that I have a quality product because you guys oversaw things in the code that I may not know to look for. So it really does protect our residents to have good quality inspections. And I thank you for that important work.
City manager, did you want to just, not comment, but just reinforce, I keep hearing the term succession planning, but career path. And I think that Mr. Tyner made reference to a specific example, but I'm hearing that more and more throughout the various departments of the city.
Yeah, that is a mission of this administration, and it's been reinforced throughout our team, the importance of succession planning, retaining our talent, and also recruiting the talent. There's many stories of creating opportunities to ensure that our staff have the tools or resources to grow if they choose to go into different positions or transition throughout the organization. We want to keep that talent. And one of the major activities that we've worked on through our entire executive team is that every position will have a roadmap to be able to grow with the organization from the time that they enter in the door and throughout their career with the
So is this a retention tool? Because we all know that we're facing, I think you guys both mentioned it and others did as well, the competition with the private sector, public sector versus private sector. I mean, it's just a battle that's out there every single day. So is this one of the tools to help keep these folks that we're training up and get the best experience from them?
Well said, very much so. It's one of many tools in the toolbox. It also is about culture. right? We have an environment that you enjoy coming to work. Yes, your workload may be very challenging at times, but you have fun at work. And I have to just also reflect and applaud on council. Many years ago, maybe 2 or 3, City Council set forward a vision of being business-friendly for our clients, our customers, our citizens out there in the community. And when you do that and you reinforce that, our stakeholders appreciate that, and that helps actually create partnerships instead of regulatory oversight. You see a lot of that culture shift with the leadership, specifically in these areas.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentations, gentlemen.
Just to add to that, if anybody out there has any doubts about the way we deal with succession plan, just take a look at the last one we did, the fire department. I am so proud of the way this thing worked. I am proud, actually proud, of the way this succession plan is working. Thank you, both of you.
Good. I see an agenda item, written items. Who's, no written items today. Very good. So we'll move right on to, since this is a workshop, we do offer opportunity for public participation at the conclusion of our agenda. So are there any members of the public that would like to address City Council at this time? Please come forward.
Alan Lowe. I was also very pleased at the results of the 4.9 result of their survey and so forth. That is incredible, and I'm glad to hear that. I have a question relating back to the Parks and Recreation, calling basically this area of town the southern end, that they want to improve the parks and so forth at the southern end, and calling this the southern end. At a meeting not too long ago concerning the Ryan's Drive project, Seagate donated, I think it was about 5 acres of land to be added to a park out in Seminole Woods. Personally, I consider the area south of Route 100 as the south end of town. So I'm curious if this is the south end, what that end is called, and do we have future ideas for developing the Parks and Recreation, so forth, at that, whatever we want to call that end of town, because of the raising fuel prices and so forth, so from people on that end don't have to come to this end, and, you know, kind of spread it out throughout the town. That's my question. Thank you.
City Manager, you have a note on that? A note on that for follow-up?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Hyder. Mr. Mayor, council members, the city manager, and also council. Prior to the meeting starting this morning, I passed out 2 emails that I had sent to code enforcement, the head of code enforcement, and I just want code enforcement to know that I in no way at all want to offend them. I know that they do a very good job with the guidelines and restrictions which are made on them. However, in these 2 emails, you'll see pictures of properties in the area that I have had a huge concern about for several months, and they have not gotten better, they've gotten worse. I have reported it to City Council, and I'd just like to read briefly one email that I sent to City Council. These photos are taken on Whetstone Lane and Wheeler Place in Palm Coast. What is happening to our beautiful city? I am aware that the laws have changed regarding code enforcement in Tallahassee, but this is what used to be our beautiful Palm Coast. Palm Coast is growing every day, and we do not want individuals to think that this is acceptable in our city. We are much bigger than this in Palm Coast. Let's work together. Let's work to change this, even if we have to contact the powers that be in Tallahassee. Please let me know What can be done about this? I am willing to help in any way that I can. I know that this is happening in other areas in Palm Coast. It's heartbreaking to see our beautiful city coming to this. This is not okay. And I agree with you, council member, that we do live in a beautiful city here in Palm Coast. When I moved here in 2005, I thought that this was one of the most beautiful cities that I've ever seen in my life. And I moved here from Long Island, New York. And I really want to see the city stay that way. And that's why I keep coming back with this issue, because we are growing very fast, and there will be individuals that come into this city. They'll be the ones that say, I don't want to live here because I don't want to look at this junk and this mess. But they're going to be ones that want to live here because they think that we are still a beautiful city. So we have to work together to keep our city beautiful, keep our city clean. And I thank you, Mayor, for listening, and hopefully we can get something done about this.
Thank you for your comment.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Very quickly.
The laws that were made in Tallahassee, why were they set up the way that they're set up, that you have to give your name and report who you are when you call up code enforcement? And can they be contacted about that?
Okay. All right. Thank you for your comment. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, Gene Dowd. I'd like to thank, as I try to remember, but I forgot the last 2 times, law enforcement, first responders, fire, EMT, doctors and nurses, and all the support staff that go into those departments and areas. But I really got up to talk about a current event. Saturday morning, a distracted driver took out the power pole on the corner of where I live. Never hit the brakes. Put the pole across our cul-de-sac so we couldn't leave. Fire department got there. The wires were hot. They could not approach. They made us all move back. Sheriff's deputies got there, got the power company there, turned the power off, pulled the car out. The fire department had to be there for more than an hour, tying up their truck. At least 2 deputies on both ends of the street. It was like daily business. FP&L showed up, 6 trucks. It took them to repair that pole. But what was amazing to me was yesterday morning, I was going to call the city to replace the sign pole and the stop sign that blew out of the ground after my walk. And I got there, and there was the city putting the sign pole back and the stop sign. So however they coordinate, police, fire, city, Florida and Power Light, this town rocks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address City Council at this time? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Greg Blasset, President and CEO of the Palm Coast Flagler Regional Chamber. I wanted to come up here and say that I feel like the strategic plan is really going pretty well. I've been sitting in a lot of these meetings. There's been tons of time that each of y'all have spent on this, including staff, and I feel like it's in a really good place with some of the conversation that you had on last moment edits coming up, but I just wanted to say good job on that. Pretty rare that you get to hear that, so I felt it might be a nice change. Second thing I wanted to say was just to make you aware that Florida Healthcare Plans is opening a new office in Palm Coast. If you haven't gotten the invitation this Thursday, they will be doing a ribbon cutting. Their new office is going to be located at Palm Coast City Marketplace, over there where the Q Note is and Dominic's Deli and all that. So Thursday they'll have an open house from 9 to 1, and then at 12 noon they will have a ribbon cutting on their new office located right here in Palm Coast. So thanks, keep up the great work. See you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other members of the public like to address City Council at this time? Seeing none approach, I will close this public participation and move on to, do any members of City Council have an item to discuss that was not on the agenda today?
Very, very little. Mr. Gene Dowell, you're right. This city rocks. We are in good hands, trust me. And just to remind people out there that we're going to rock even more on the 3rd for July 4th celebrations. We're going to be the place to be at. I'm pretty sure that me and my colleagues are all going to be there enjoying it with our families, kids, and not so kids. But we're all going to enjoy it. And please go out there, be patriotic, and remember, 4th of July celebrations should be one of the most civil celebrations that we have in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Council?
Yeah, I would just have a request of our city manager, if you could get together with Kathy and let her know how we are, because we do have a plan to deal with this, and I've been working with some residents that actually, what the pictures you show are nothing compared to what some of these other places look like. They're all getting worse, so, but we do have a plan, and if you would get together with Ms. Bevan, I think she can quickly fill you in on our approach.
to work with you on that.
Thank you for bringing this to our
Thank you,
attention.
Councilman. Councilman Finelli, any final comments?
I'm just excited to hopefully see everybody out on 3rd of July at the airport. It's going to be a good time.
Very good. My only comment is we're on an 8-day countdown to the Flagler Foodathon. So anybody that is not familiar with it, it's hard to imagine that I haven't bothered anybody with it. But be reminded, 8 days left, and please tune in to WNZF all day on the 8th. And with that, we move on to the city attorney. Any matters that you'd like to bring up today?
I have none.
And city manager.
I have none. Thank you, Mayor.
So with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, sir.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.